Hey guys, it's Franky. Welcome to the Think Tank. So, I wonder what we're going to learn today. I've been up since, I don't know, something like 5 o'clock with this on my brain, resetting things and looking at things and realizing, oh, Jazzy says good morning to the neighborhood. Jasmine. First thing, and she's got to say hello. Sit down, ladies. So what do you think we're going to learn today? Is he going to plea? And if so, what? I am truly thinking that he is going with not guilty. He wouldn't have got like another high-powered lawyer. And I think he would have, I don't think he would have gone through all of this just to go, oh, by the way, I'm guilty. And he's too arrogant. He's way too arrogant to, he thinks he's the smartest guy in the system, around the system, and he has nothing to lose. He's going to exonerate himself. Oh my God, guys. Hang on. Oh my word. Oh my word. They went outside with it for a second. Okay, let's see here. Let's take a look. Brian Enton will be there today. So we'll be getting regular updates from him.
Bryan Kohberger, the man accused of brutally murdering 4 University of Idaho students last November, is due back in court on Monday. This after a secret grand jury indicted Kohberger on murder and burglary charges earlier this week. For more insight on this shocking case, attorney and King's College Senior Fellow of Law and Public Policy Mark Smith joins us now. Mark, it's always so great to have your insight. So we're going to see which way he's going to plead tomorrow. Then what comes?
Well, he's going to obviously plead not guilty to the crimes he's been indicted for on Monday. Then what will happen is almost certainly the judge will set another date for the lawyers to come back to discuss any open items involving witnesses or any discovery that they still want to take. And possibly, it's possible on Monday, they may even set a tentative trial date. Of course, trial dates are always subject to, again, the
I'm a mess this morning, guys. So I'm going to say this again. I thought today was going to be live, but it's live updates. Brian Enton's, like I was saying, he's going to be in the courtroom. And I know I think it's Court TV possibly will be recording it. And when it's put out through whatever avenue, then we can start showing it. So I'm hoping I've got most of the people that will be giving us updates covered. If you guys find one that you don't think I have, feel free to send it to me. My Discord will be open. And yeah, let's see what he has to say here. And I'll see if I can keep Jazzy under control.
Process and what evidence has been, still uncovered, how much time the defense needs, in their view, to build a case to defend against the district attorney's case here. So, yeah, I think in some ways, Monday is not a huge event, other than it's going to really set a timetable that we can look down the chessboard as to what's going to play out in this case going forward.
And we know there are some key pieces of evidence we are likely to see. We can show you here. We've got about 5 of them. Really, the one that stands out is, of course, we understand that they didn't get the K-bar style knife they believe was used, but they did get the sheath. What can you tell us about that or any of the other pieces of evidence we may see?
Well, a lot of evidence was turned over to the defense lawyers last week, according to reports. And the question really is, Griff, what does all this mean? There's one critical gap, as I see it, in the prosecution's case so far, as best as we can tell from public reports, and that is what would cause Bryan Kohberger to do what he did, or at least what he's alleged to have done. A lack of motive really stands out here. They're building a very strong circumstantial case to say, well, there's some evidence that he was there at the relevant time. His car was on film around the place of the murders.
So let me come back here. So what do you guys think? Is there a possibility this is, oh, you shared Dateline? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You rock, Dandy. Oh, my girls are full of it this morning. Just wait when Dad heads to work. Ho, ho, ho. So, yeah, we're having, I guess, News Nation and WFLA and all of those kind of subsidiaries are now striking people that use their content. So I won't be using their streams. I'm not going to get myself in trouble like that if I can avoid it. So yeah, I won't be sharing. The only thing I think that is bothersome about something like that is realistically, it's a good way to advertise for them as well. But I won't go near that. I'll like getting in trouble.
They have that kind of circumstantial evidence, but at the end of the day, the government wants to win a conviction with a jury, and usually when a case relies entirely on circumstantial evidence, which is the case, I think if you're the government, you have to preserve most of the murders. They have that kind of circumstantial evidence, but at the end of the day, the government wants to win a conviction with a jury, and usually when a case...
So do you guys think there is enough? What do you guys honestly think? Is there enough to convict? I'm, again, with the media, I don't know where to look for proper answers right now. Nice. Yeah, Jazzy wants to definitely get him guilty and put away. It is like such a waste of money to do all of this stuff when okay, there might be a little bit out there that is questionable, like the 8-hour time gap. But did Kohberger create that 8-hour time gap, or did somebody in that house? I agree, Dandy. I agree. Guilty with the info I already have. So do you think that there's a lot more we're not hearing about? Is there, does the state or the feds, do they have enough, do you think? And do you think that his defense is going to be able to come up with stuff that's going to confuse the issue enough that people are not going to convict? I mean, let's look at Casey Anthony. How long did we look at that case and go, oh my God, like every indication is there that she is guilty, every single indication. And she got off. OJ, I mean, he has a little bit different story because back in the day, he was like a hero to a lot of people. He, you know, a black fellow that did very, very good. And you didn't want the race card to be played with that one, I guess. But something got those guys to an innocent plea. If you remember Robert Kardashian, one of his lawyers, actually that Kim Kardashian's dad, there's a time when they pan in on OJ just while they were saying that he was getting off, and Robert Kardashian was standing to the right of him, and he the look on his face was beyond shocked. It was like, how the hell did this happen? I didn't think even Robert Kardashian thought he was, and he was a close friend. That's why he was there. Close friend at one time. Yeah. And when that came, like, just the stunned look on his face was like, oh my God. Too hilarious. It's like in the Letitia Stout trial that we just did. Her lawyers were crying. Like, that kind of tells you where they were lying as far as an opinion, because when the father started, I got sidetracked. They know he purchased the K-bar from Amazon as per Dateline. Is that right, Dan? Do you see? And they also took a knife from, I think, was it his parents' house, or was it? But they also took a knife, but they didn't give a description of it. So I don't know what that's all about, unless it's the same one, right? That's a good question. Like, right, Maxie? Can they place that weapon as the weapon that was used? Yeah, it makes you wonder. I mean, although everyone's out there saying, like, if we're going about what they have, then they don't have enough. The thing is we really don't know what they have. Look at how shocked we are when we watch trials and we try to put it all together. And then all of a sudden at trial, they just like, what? It's like, where the hell did that come from? But, you know, it's been a long enough time since he was charged until now that a fair amount has slipped out. Not sure how, but it slipped out. If you guys, I don't know if any of you guys know Jay for Justice, her channel. I'm going to look for her, and I'm going to put her in my description as a channel to watch. It sounds like she's getting struck by those few channels that I made. And, you know, she works hard. So, yeah, Jay for Justice. Jay, I'll type it out. I imagine, yeah, just check her out. I don't think what's happening is fair. So let's check her out and let's get back into this.
Case relies entirely on circumstantial evidence, which is the case so far. Guess what? They're going to want to understand why he did what he is alleged to have done. That does not appear to be available right now. And if I were the district attorney, if I were the prosecutors, I'd be laser focused on trying to piece together a motive as to why he did what he did, because it's such a, you know, it's such a heinous crime here. You really would like to understand what would prompt someone to do this.
There's so much we don't know. We don't have the murder weapon. We don't know the motive. We were showing just a moment ago, Mark, the residence where this grisly murders happened, and I understand they're boarding that up, and it looks like, you know, for obvious reasons, this home will be likely destroyed. But yet some are saying, hey, wait a minute, not so fast. What if the jury should want to go to the scene of the crime? How important is that, preserving that crime scene, at least until the trial is over?
Oh, I think if you're the government, you have to preserve all the evidence, including, of course, the place where these murders took place. The last thing you want is for, if you're a prosecutor at least, is for a defense attorney to be able to stand up in front of the jury and say, why did the government do what they did? Why did they allow this critical piece of evidence, i.e. the location of the murders, to be destroyed? What are they trying to hide? That would be kind of a compelling argument the defense attorney could potentially make. So certainly if I were the government in Idaho, I would be very careful of destroying and making sure nothing was destroyed, because the last thing you want to do in a case that looks relatively strong right now is to do anything that's going to undercut it by making it look like you're hiding something. Because the last thing that a juror wants to see, if they feel like the government is not being honest with the jury, if they're hiding evidence, boy, you know, that is the sort of thing where a jury would say, look, we don't feel comfortable that the government, and then if the government is hiding one thing, what else are they hiding from us? And boy, you know, that's the kind of situation where a strong case could become a losing case really fast.
We shall see what happens Monday morning. It will be very interesting to watch. Mark Smith, thank you very much. Have a good weekend.
So, yeah. So did you? Oh, thank you guys. Yeah, thank you very much. I was watching her this morning and I heard this, and you know, I've watched her, like I said, since oh my goodness, Gabby, and she was close in sorry, I'm fumbling a little bit. She lived kind of close to that area, so she gave excellent updates, and she was really, really good. So for a while, you know, when they get busy, you stop. And then I seen her again, and it was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? So yeah, I don't know why some people are threatened by social media, because as far as I know, most of us, they're the odd ones that aren't. But we just want to help any way we can. So it's not, some of them they're about the money. And a lot of these corporations, they're after the money. They don't want anybody taking, you know, 50 viewers even from them. And, you know, there's been a little bit of trouble with some of these different places with the information being wrong. So, yeah, I think she's good, and I hate to see that happening to her. I don't ever want to see her lose her channel, because it's almost like the bigger people, it's like people being picked on. That I feel like she's being picked on. So with that said, let's see what else we got here. So yeah, Brian Enton, let's take a look at him for a second. This is what he put out. Just getting to the courthouse.
Yeah, I just wanted to get on here real quick because a lot of people were asking about the Kohberger arraignment and how it's going to work. I got to go back in there in a minute because we're all kind of lined up in this little entryway. The courthouse isn't open yet, but
isn't that something? People will be piled to get in there.
Someone started a list, so I think I'm okay to be outside, but I'm going to go back in a second. But basically,
and you know what? I mean, it sounds like Kohberger is going to be there, so he's going to be face to face with this creep that we haven't seen for a very long time. It's only my opinion when I'm saying this stuff, because I mean, I know there's a fraction of people out there that think he's innocent and getting picked on. Personally, I despise this guy, and I want to see him. I want to see justice in a big, bad way.
the hearing is going to start at 9 a.m. local time. There's a couple hearings today. His arraignment will be at 9 a.m. Where he will be read the charges, and he'll have to plead guilty or not guilty. You know, the charges based on the grand jury indictment. And then
I think that grand jury indictment, some people said they were surprised, and I totally expected it. I totally expected it. And they just saved a lot of time by looking that over and having random people just kind of take a good look at this case, and he's guilty. So that was enough for them to carry on to this part instead of having to wait until July 26th.
There's 2 more hearings after that related to the gag order. So
Could be a long
we
day.
are allowed to have a camera in the courtroom. So it will be videoed, but we're not allowed to live stream it. So when the hearing is over, we'll be able to put the video out. But I will be allowed to live tweet. We clarified with the court because last time it was a little confusing, and I
So that's awesome. Live tweeting.
didn't live tweet just because I was nervous. I didn't want to like get kicked out. But this time they said live
That's fair.
tweeting is allowed, just no video or pictures. So I will live tweet it.
Nice boots.
House last night. I put a video. I'm gonna go back in the daylight, but it's different over there. Everything is boarded up. There's like a security hut outside. Moscow's.
Did you guys know that? They've got a security hut kind of attached to that other place that's at the foot of that big driveway. They've got a blue security hut sitting there now.
Pretty quiet right now because graduation, I think, was last weekend. So a lot of the students are gone. So it's quiet. It's much warmer than like family. But we know that some of the victims' families are going to be here just from talking to them. So they wanted to be here for this. We're going to be for the arraignment. But this is the courthouse. Courthouse is really small. And the jail is like underneath the courthouse. That's actually the entrance over there. So his cell is like kind of in the basement here. And then they just bring him right up to this little courtroom.
I'm a little bit nervous doing a lot of his stuff just due to the fact that he's associated with, just because he's associated, right? But if I see anything else that looks like we need it, I'll jump back on and look, but I don't need strikes. I don't. Okay. Long Crime's going to be giving updates. So I can go in and read them is what I can do. That's probably, well, hello, James. Good to see you, friend. Let's see what else. Yeah, I don't want to. When they strike you, you literally, the first strike is 7 days. And it doesn't take, I think the second one is you're booted off for like, it's just not good. It's just not good. Not when you're trying to, it's not a profession because I don't make any money. One day it might be a profession, but at this point, I don't. I do this because I feel like this is my way of giving back, and everybody that follows is helping give it back. Pay it forward. What's in the indictment of Idaho suspect Bryan Kohberger and what it means and what's next? Let's check that out.
He was already charged with their murders, but the indictment allows prosecutors to skip his upcoming preliminary hearing that was scheduled for June. Shannon Mowdy with our sister station in Spokane talked to a legal expert about the strategic move to convene a grand jury.
While a grand jury may be an unfamiliar concept for most,
grand jury system exists in the Constitution. It's in the Fifth Amendment. It's been around since 1776.
trial attorney Mo Hamoudi says it is a legal strategy that safeguards a highly publicized case, since the process is done behind closed doors instead of the public preliminary hearing. It can protect the defendant and witnesses.
The witnesses feel much more comfortable, sometimes freer to talk.
Hamoudi says that can play against the defense because a grand jury isn't an adversarial process. No cross-examination.
The only authority that the defense attorney has is nothing. can't do anything.
Another plus for the prosecutor, keeping their case theory secret until trial, as they only present some of the evidence.
The grand jurors ask questions to the witnesses. They're free to do that. And they're free to ask the prosecutor to produce witnesses and produce additional evidence. They have subpoena power.
And since a majority of those jurors agreed to indict, Hammoudi says it can also point to the strength of the case we'll see play out at trial, a vote of confidence for the state moving forward.
Absolutely, because what the prosecutor received was a
His eyes can 3 strikes before a ban, and you can appeal strikes. No, haven't missed anything. Innocent till proven guilty. Saying that, I think he's guilty. Well said. Yeah. No, haven't missed anything. They're not going to do it live for us. Yeah, I think 3 strikes before a ban. I think you get something like 7 days and then something like a month. Oh, doesn't he? Yeah, James, he gives me Bundy vibes. Yeah, he just, those eyes, right? And I mean, there's nothing in them. I always call them fish eyes. You know, if you've been fishing and there's nothing in them. Or snake eyes, like something that you just look at and they're empty. One creepy, creepy, creepy dude.
positive nod by members of the public with respect to some of the evidence that they've collected thus far.
Kohberger was arrested in
Even when he did this little tiny part, I'll go back, where he says he's innocent. He's pretty comfortable.
With respect to some of the evidence that they've collected thus far.
Kohberger was arrested in December at his parents' home in Pennsylvania. The arrest happened more than a month after University of Idaho students Maddie Mogan, Kaylee Gonsalves, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin were found stabbed to death in an off-campus home.
Brutal.
He is scheduled for an arraignment hearing this.
Yes, he is. That's where we're at. Let me see here. I am going to see if I can get... No. Okay. I'm fussing around because I thought... There we are. Let's go back. Let's go back. Cold black eyes. Like, yeah, kind of, well said. Cold black eyes, like doll's eyes. Then they roll over white and the sea turns red. Captain Quint, right? And exactly, he has been studying this for most of his life. So, I mean, absolutely. And then now that he probably was one like we are. We go in and we really, really dig into these cases. Well, I'm imagining he did it for totally different reasons than us. And then he topped it off by going and getting like his master's in criminology. Isn't it his master's? And then he's got his psychology. So that training is going to help somebody like this. It's, yeah, cold black eyes with a high IQ. That's just bloody scary. So we'll pop over here. And I am watching. I am not seeing anything yet as to... Yeah, WFLA is doing something. And of course, Jay. So I'm just trying to see here. Yeah, I'll probably just I don't know. Have to keep updating and see who's got what. And I think I'll also have to do a little bit of reading for us just to kind of keep up with it. I really, really wish they would give us more in some of these cases. And that's just curiosity, right? Because there's literally no reason why they have to give us anything. I just think they should. Unreal. Okay. Let's go back over here. Nothing there yet. Oh, Jazzy, right? Oh, well, good call, James. He's not as smart as he thinks he is, or he wouldn't be wearing orange. Well said. Yeah, well said. But do you think he's made all these mistakes? Like, what are they looking at now that just kind of came out that I was afraid to share? Let me take a boo. Well, even the fact, I'll figure that one out. Even the fact that everything is going to be no live streaming by the looks of things. Like I said, it's a curiosity for me, but I'm no different than somebody sitting in the courtroom. You know, this is our updates. I would love to be sitting in that courtroom. This is one of those cases that I would love to be sitting in the courtroom. Kohberger, Richard Allen, and Kohberger, Richard Allen. What's the other one? That's the thing. It's nearly impossible to do these things and get away scot-free. You know, and they did give us a pretty good list of what they took, but we did not get the results. So they could possibly have a crap ton of things that we don't know about. And I want to know. Yeah. And like I was saying, I imagine if this part is not being shared, I don't expect the rest of it to be. Okay. Let me see. I've also got his indictment. That it's long, but if we have a long waiting time, we can also go through that. So updated May 18th. An indictment was filed in Tuesday in 2nd District Court of Latah. And I need that. Latah County, I want that. Kohberger of 4 counts of first degree and 1 count of burglary. Under Idaho law, burglary is defined as entering a house, room, apartment, business, or any type of building or vehicle with intent to commit any felony. The indictment is not a pronouncement of guilt. It's a statement of charges. Kohberger has the right to trial by jury. Kohberger is expected to answer the charges when he appears for the arraignment in Latah County District Court on Monday, May 22nd, 9 a.m. Pacific Daytime, 10 a.m. Isn't that, Mountain Daytime? What the hell is that? What is MDT? Judge John Judge? Really? Is presiding over the case. A preliminary hearing previously scheduled to take place in Magistrate Court on June 26th is now canceled, which is good. Get that shit over and done with. Kohberger was arrested on December 30th, 2022 at his family's home in Pennsylvania. Proceedings in Latah County Magistrate Court began the next week after Pennsylvania State police officers escorted him a cross-country flight to Idaho. Do you remember that? He was in that little tiny plane that couldn't make it across the US. It had to stop for fuel halfway. It was a pretty tiny plane. So let's see here. Count 1 is burglary. This alleges that Kohberger unlawfully entered the house at 1122 King Road in Moscow with the intent to commit the felony crime of unaliving. Count 2, in first degree, this alleges that Kohberger willfully, unlawfully, with premeditation and with malice aforethought killed and okay, I don't know the difference there. Madison Mogan, and that was the weapon. Count 3, in the first degree, using similar language as count 2, alleges that Kohberger unalived Kaylee Goncalves. Count 4, in the first degree, using similar languages as counts 2 and 3, this alleges that Kohberger unalived Zana Kernodle. Count 5, in the first degree, also using similar language as the other 3 counts, alleges that Kohberger unalived Ethan Chapin. The last sentence of the indictment refers to allegations as being contrary to the form, force, and effect of the statutes in such a case made and provided and against the peace and dignity of the state of Idaho. The names and all witnesses examined by the grand jury in Kohberger case are sealed. Latah County Prosecutor Bill Thompson explains why he believes those names should be sealed in this motion, with a judge granted in that motion that Thompson wrote that prospective witnesses or their families and associates had already complained of being harassed in person and on social media. He argued that releasing their names would make that situation worse and undetermine the integrity of the case. So, yeah, why are people showing up at their doors? And why is anybody showing up at their door? Like, back off. The name of the presiding grand juror who signed the indictment is redacted from the document posted online. You can review it through this link. I don't think I've got this one, friends. I'll take it. So 3 pages. And date of birth for Bryan. And this is, what's the date on this? May 16th, 2023 at 5:04 p.m. in Clerk of District Court of Latah. So Bryan C. Kohberger, and this gives all the counts. And actually, we've gone over this, so I do have it. We have gone over these charges in a previous. So I don't need it. You guys have seen it. Why their preliminary hearing was canceled and what a grand jury does. This is good to know because it's not something that we usually understand. In felony cases, Idaho law requires the state, the prosecution, to show there is enough evidence to proceed to trial. This is done through a preliminary hearing where witnesses' testimony is presented in open court and the defense has an opportunity to cross-examine those witnesses and through grand jury proceedings. Preliminary hearings in Idaho felony criminal cases take place in magistrate court, which also handles the initial court appearance after the arrest. Trials and sentencing take place in district court, similar to what's called superior court in other states. A grand jury, as explained by staff of the Idaho Judicial Branch, is a panel of citizens called together to hear evidence in a serious criminal matter, then determine if the charges should be brought against that person. The administrative district judge is given in a given county may order the impaneling of the grand jury on a motion for the prosecution attorney at such time as the public interest requires, according to Criminal Rule 6. Grand jury proceedings, including witness testimony, are private and secret. Prosecutors prevent the information to the grand jury. Possible defendants are not entitled to be there, and there is no opportunity for anyone to cross-examine witnesses on the defendant's behalf. Under Idaho criminal rule, a grand jury may consist of 16 people, but the grand jury may deliberate and take action if at least 12 are present. Selection and impaneling of grand jury takes place in a closed session with only a district judge, prosecutor, the prospective jurors, the court reporter, and a court clerk if needed as interpreter. If an interpreter is present. Sorry. Are you saying good morning again, Jazzy? Are you saying good morning? We're supposed to be down to business, and you're crying for cookies. Okay, catch, go play. So, in that arraignment on Monday, the charges will be read, and Kohberger may enter a plea of guilty or not guilty. Another possibility is he will stand silent, in which case the judge will enter a plea of not guilty. It is also possible that the entry of plea may be set for a later date. Oh. If Kohberger pleads not guilty, preparations for trial will continue. If he pleads guilty, the case will move to a sentencing phase. Wouldn't that be nice, like in our dreams? Brutal. First-degree murder carries a possible death sentence. Short of that, Kohberger could be sentenced to prison for the rest of his life, according to Idaho law. Prosecutors who intend to seek the DP must file a written notice no later than 60 days after a plea is entered. Okay, so this part is coming up after we're done hearing him plea. It sounds like there will be something else. They're saying that they have to have a written notice no later than 60 days if the plea is entered. So they don't have forever and ever and ever to sit there without.
The man accused of killing 4 University of Idaho students more than 6 months ago will be in court this morning in Moscow. Prosecutors say Bryan Kohberger stabbed Xana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Gonsalves at a home next to campus in the early morning hours of November 13th.
Kohberger will be arraigned on 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of burglary. Our Morgan Romero is up in Moscow covering this story for us right now, and she tells us what we can expect in just a few hours.
Good morning. Bryan Kohberger has a chance to enter a plea here in District Court in Latah County this morning. He can choose to plead not guilty. He can stand silent and the judge can enter a not guilty plea on his behalf. He can ask for a continuance or he could plead guilty. A former prosecutor I talked to says there is no chance Bryan Kohberger pleads guilty in this case. At 9 a.m. Pacific time, District Court Judge John Judge will officially tell Kohberger he was indicted on the 5 charges and ask if he wants the charges read out loud. The judge will also tell Kohberger the penalties the charges carry. The judge will then ask if he's prepared to enter a plea. If Kohberger pleads not guilty or the judge enters that for him, the case will be set for trial. Attorneys say if he asks for a continuance, he'll still be arraigned, but the judge will set the case for another hearing, typically within a week or 2, and he'll enter a formal plea at that time. A grand jury convened in private and indicted Kohberger last week on the 5 charges he already faced, meaning he'll no longer have his preliminary hearing in late June. With the formal charges now filed in an indictment, the case moves into district court. Former Ada County Chief Deputy Prosecutor Gene Fisher says prosecutors also shaved off a month's worth of time. Fisher adds this grand jury process shouldn't come as a surprise to Kohberger's defense at all.
Prosecutors are going to ask for a grand jury proceeding in a case like this, given the nature of the case, the attention that it's already received in the media, and the fact that it's a great tool for the prosecutors because they're able to go in and present probable cause to 16 members.
Again, I agree. This is absolutely
Of the community
Yeah.
versus in front of the judge, and the witnesses
Unreal.
come and they don't have to be cross-examined while the state is still under the obligation and rule.
That was just a long waste of time. How to stretch things out is basically what I was trying to say.
Of discovery to put on enough evidence to show that a crime was probably committed and that the defendant probably committed the crime.
When we got into Moscow last night, we went to the home where the students were
So yeah, by doing this, it basically shaved a little over a month off.
killed. The doors are boarded up and a fence surrounds the house. There's a security guard manning a little blue trailer in the driveway. 6 months later,
And I go back to that. That blows me away.
were killed. The doors
Look
are
at
boarded
that.
up and a fence surrounds the house. There's a security guard manning a little blue trailer in the driveway. 6 months later, there is still crime scene tape, as well as this makeshift memorial outside the property. Once a plea is entered for the man accused of murdering those students in this home, his trial could happen within the next 6 months, or he could waive his right to a speedy trial. Like the Vallow and Daybell cases, this judge could also move Kohberger's trial down to Ada or another county in Idaho where there's a better chance.
So do you think that's really at this point going to make any difference moving this trial? Or do you think that pretty much everybody has heard about this?
Chance of finding a fair and impartial jury. Fisher also pointed out if Kohberger enters a plea this morning, the 60-day countdown begins for prosecutors to file a notice that they want to seek the death penalty. Kohberger also has 2 procedural hearings lined up this morning after his arraignment. If anything of importance comes out of those, we will be sure to report them on air.
So yeah. Unreal. Let's see. So yeah, it's nearly impossible to do these things and get away scot-free. Yeah, how would he not? Was it said that he had something on his head? Like he had a balaclava, right? That covered up his mouth. So still, they've got that footprint, but does that footprint jive with his foot size? The grand jury thinks there's enough to show. We just need 12 jurors to think the same. Yeah, and I don't know, Dandy. I don't know how they couldn't. I don't know. No, yeah, exactly. Burglary is for unlawfully entering and committing a felony. No theft needed. Just, yeah, basically the thought is that he's going to do something not cool when he gets in that house. Bloody footprint on a door would be a slam dunk for the prosecution. Didn't they also have DNA? Yeah, they've got DNA on the button on the sheath. And then they've got that shoe print that has that triangle Vans. So I have to find out if he's ever had Vans before. I even was looking at the bottom of mine, and mine have got those little diamond squares all over them too. So you literally have to live under a rock to not know anything about this. That's my thoughts, Dandy. Like, it blows me away. What are you looking for, hubby? Oh, I seen that in the living room somewhere. Oh, here. You're welcome. Real life. Sorry, guys. Yeah, literally you would have to. This was big. How often does it happen that somebody goes in and does something like this? Thankfully, not very freaking often. There's enough mortifying things running around the world daily. But yeah, this was a bunch of kids. I mean, I think about these kids every single day. They're on my mind. And this little neat has been on my mind too. Nothing has come up that makes me think that he's not guilty, you know? Wear patterns in shoes convict people. Yes, exactly. A little nick here, a little nick there. The shoes end up getting their own fingerprint. So what else did I want to yitter yatter about here? No. Let's see here. What do we got? I'm gonna have to check those guys out. Okay, so Bryan Kohberger will be in court on Monday. Here is what to expect. And a commercial. All righty.
Good morning. Welcome to this special edition of Up with Crime. I'm Tim Pham. We are live in Moscow, Idaho this morning outside of the Latah County Courthouse. Just 6 months ago, the man accused of murdering 4 students was arrested. He will face his arraignment in a matter of hours. He will face his arraignment in a matter of hours at 9 a.m. This morning, we do have Up with Crime team coverage for you with in-depth coverage, taking a look at all angles. Nicole Hernandez is at the King Road home this morning, taking a closer look. Is in the Crime 2 studio, justice for the victims. On November 13th of last year, Ethan Chapin, Xana Kernodle, Kaylee Consalves, and Madison Mogan were found stabbed to death in an off-campus home. Police arrested Bryan Kohberger 47 days later in Pennsylvania. Investigators connected him to the crime scene through Burger 47 days later in Pennsylvania. Investigators connected him to the crime scene through DNA evidence found on a knife sheath left at the crime scene. Last week, we learned a grand jury indicted the suspect on all charges. He now faces 4 first-degree murder charges and 1 count of burglary. This indictment means there is enough evidence for the case to go to a full trial. It also means there will not be a preliminary hearing in June as originally planned. We spoke with a Moscow resident about this.
The excitement wore down within a few days.
Yeah, definitely different for the Moscow community. There will also be a new judge in the case. His name is Judge John Judge, and as of now, the case is still in Latah County District Court, but it could be moved to another county if the judge thinks there is a better chance of finding an impartial jury. If the suspect.
Okay, I just want to see something. Which way do I go? Which way do I go? Let's see. It's a little over 10, so I just want to see if there's anything. Okay, Brian Enton is saying he doesn't see any of the family, but there is an overflow. So I think this is what I'm going to have to do is I think I'm going to do updates with him. So let's see here. I'll just read them. I think that's my safest. And then I'll find something that I'm not going to get in trouble with to show what we've got. So the man accused of unaliving 4 University of Idaho students last November is scheduled to appear in the court for his arraignment. This will be the first time the suspect has been seen in court since his initial appearance shortly after arrest. And I really want to see what he looks like. Is he like everybody else? Is he losing a whole bunch of weight, or is he been working on a bench? Bryan Kohberger was indicted by a grand jury last Tuesday with charges related to the deaths of Ethan Chapin, Kaylee Goncalves, Xana Kernodle, and Maddie Mogan on November 13th, 2023, with sufficient evidence established to formally charge Kohberger for these deaths. He must now enter a plea, and depending on his plea is how it will proceed. So once again, I need to watch this a little bit. Okay. The preliminary hearing originally scheduled for the June 26th has been canceled. Yes. He will make his appearance. Yes. What to expect in today's hearings? So he was set to begin at 9 a.m., 10 a.m. to me on Monday, May 22nd. During this hearing, the judge will reiterate the suspect's rights and charges against him. The judge will likely ask him to enter a plea for each charge. In Idaho, only 2 pleas are recognized, guilty or not guilty. Hey, I like that. If a suspect refuses to enter a plea or fails to appear at the hearing, the court will enter a plea of not guilty on the suspect's behalf. So, do you guys think he's going to show up? What do you think? Let's see here. Looking. You guys, you know what? I'm going to do it right now, actually. My ancestry. Hooked back up. And I will start another one just for, let me see here. I'll make one just for cases. Let me see here. We will look at this while I'm doing that.
Good morning, and thanks so much for joining us here on Up with Krim. I'm Channing Curtis. In less than 3 hours, the man accused of killing 4 University of Idaho students will be back in court. This morning, our Tim Pham is joining us live from the Latah County Courthouse ahead of that hearing. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning, Channing. Yes, this arraignment happening a lot earlier than we thought. Originally, it was scheduled for late June, and now it is happening today, as you mentioned, at 9 a.m. You can see outside of the Latah County Courthouse, there's a lot of attention gathered here from both local and national media this morning. This case obviously captured the attention of the nation as police search for the person who killed 4 students at the University of Idaho. That's who this is all about, really. When we think about, we're talking about is seeking justice for the victims. While a large part of today will focus on what's happening in the courtroom, it is all about that first step in seeking justice for the victims. So let's get you to 3 things you need to know about what's happening today. As we mentioned, that arraignment is happening at 9 a.m. The suspect, Bryan Kohberger, is expected to enter a plea for 5 charges against him. Number 2, those 5 charges include 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of burglary. And number 3, if he pleads not guilty, the court will schedule the case for trial. Right now, there's no indication of when that trial may be. We will only know that after today's appearance. So right now, there's also a gag order in place that prevents law enforcement attorneys and the victim's family from speaking publicly about the case. Last week, Krem 2 spoke with the attorney for the family of Kaylee Consalves, and he told us that he's still in the dark about what this whole gag order means.
The conundrum is that he's being arraigned at 9 o'clock on Monday, and then we have a scheduling conference on the non-dissemination gag order at 10 o'clock. But the issue with that is that as soon as he's arraigned, Judge Marshall's off the case, and it goes to Judge. Why are we having a schedule? Judge Marshall's off the case, and it goes to Judge. Why are we having a scheduling conference with Judge Marshall?
Well, Gray tells us that Judge John Judge is set to take over the case, as you heard. Gray filed a motion to remove the gag order. In those court documents, he claimed he and the Consalves family should be allowed to speak publicly about the case under the First Amendment. A lot has happened in this case in the last 6 months. Since Kohberger allegedly killed those 4 students. Our Nicole Hernandez has been following this closely for the last 6 months. She continues our team coverage now with a look back of the events leading up to this point.
I'm at the King Road house where police found those 4 University of Idaho students back in November. 30 minutes ago, we went over a timeline of events from the murders to Kohberger's arrest. Now I want to break down what's happened since the arrest to today, the arraignment. We left off at December 30th, police arresting Bryan Kohberger in his family home in Pennsylvania. Just hours later, law enforcement served a search warrant on Kohberger's Pullman apartment. On January 3rd, Kohberger waived his extradition hearing so police could bring him back to Idaho. The next day, January 4th, police fly Kohberger across the country. He lands at the Pullman-Moscow Regional Airport, and officers take him to the Latah County Jail. Less than 24 hours later, on January 5th, the courts released the arrest affidavit. We learn a surviving roommate saw a man in the house the night of the murders, that Kohberger's phone pinged near the King Road house 12 times in the months leading up to November 13th, and that DNA evidence connected Kohberger to the murders. Right after we saw DNA evidence connected Kohberger to the murders. Right after we saw that arrest affidavit, Kohberger appeared in court for the first time. On January 12th, Kohberger was in court again. At that hearing, the judge set the preliminary trial for the end of June. Then, not many updates until this past week when we learned about the grand jury indictment. That, of course, brings us to the arraignment this morning. Both Tim and I will be at that arraignment at 9 o'clock, and we'll make sure to bring you the updates on Crime 2 News at noon. In Moscow, Nicole Hernandez, Crime 2 News.
Oh my goodness. So did you guys hear a word I said with this thing doing what it was doing? I was talking about Kohberger's family and Maddie's family, and just, you didn't. Okay, that's good, because I thought that that's good information to have. I was muted, I think. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Why do you think that the rest of the families are not going hard for this gag order like Kaylee's family has been? They've been going hard. On mute, Franky. Damn me. Jesus, Lord Murphy. I have to set this somehow where I can see. Oh, Jazzy's out there saying good morning to somebody. Okay, so let me see. Kohberger, what have we got? Kohberger, you nasty little piece of shit. So everybody's talking about him going into into court. They're not saying if he's physically there, they're just saying that basically everyone was set to get going. So we're looking at about 15 minutes for whatever it was. And then we have to deal with that gag order and what have you after that. So it's kind of a big day for this case. Idaho college student slaying suspect Bryan Kohberger set to be arraigned 47 minutes ago. Let's see here. 2 hours ago, Bryan Kohberger is charged. And it's just saying he is to be arraigned. So it's not. Did anybody who all watched that Dateline? Yeah, that's what I understand. He has to be there to make his plea. And if he doesn't show up, it just means that they're going to say he's guilty. So, or sorry, say he's innocent and they throw him into trial is the way I understand it. That's the way I understand it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but so let's see. Come on, Bryan. Still nothing. Isn't that amazing if really none of his family showed up? Wouldn't that be something? Okay, I'll refresh this. The man, let's see here. I'll take a peek. So there's those creepy freaking eyes again. Creepy, creepy, creepy. The man suspected of attacking 4 Idaho students is set to be arraigned. His first court date appearance since shortly after his arrest was made. We know that he was indicted by a grand jury on the unaliving and the burglary charges. 28 years old, was arrested in December. Talks about the kids. You know, this one picture, I've seen it. I've seen it quite a few times, and it's just spooky to me. That's just spooky to me. That was home to these kids. And it's just turned into this great big massive, I don't know, tombstone. I don't know what the hell you'd call it. That's awful. I'm glad that they're waiting until the trial is over, or so it seems, because you never know. I don't think they've ever had anyone clean that house since this happened, like in any way. So what they could walk into could be pretty traumatic. I could be wrong with that also, but I have not seen one thing about any kind of crew going through. So they announced Kohberger's arrest on December 30th, nearly 5 months after this happened. The case remains unknown to the public, including the motivation of the crime and how they chose their victims, or he chose his victims. This gag order has barred law enforcement, lawyers, and other involved with the case from discussing it publicly. A legal fight is against it by the news organization, including the Washington Post. And we are reading this from the Washington Post. Court records unsealed in January offered a window into how investigators linked Kohberger to the deaths, revealing it was DNA on that knife sheath. So there was something else. I think he may have done like a ancestry type thing, because there was something out there that for some reason his DNA was already on file. And it also said, if we remember, all those cell phone records that put him right around that house at least 12 times, and they were all nighttime. They were all nighttime stalking, if that's what you want to call it. And I think there was only once that he kind of went earlier. But no, he was basically going there in the evening. And it says that his white or a similar white Hyundai Elantra was found passing the King Street house 4 times in the early mornings of November 13th before he eventually took off at about 4:20, 4:30. So records often, no, they didn't often. The records offered details of what unfolded November 13th later that night. The 4 students returned to the home on King Street after a typical college Friday. Mogan and Goncalves stopped by a food truck after hanging out at the bar. Kernodle and Chapin, a couple, spent a few hours at his fraternity at Sigma Chi. By 4 a.m., they were all in their rooms, deep asleep, except for Kernodle, who was, I think she was on one of her apps, playing on one of her apps, and ordered DoorDash. So they're saying that more than likely this DoorDash is not a blonde, brunette, which is interesting. If we look back at some of the previous videos, there is a girl named Emma that everybody is talking about. So it was around that time that a roommate identified as only DM, we know who DM is, of course, woke up to what she thought was Kaylee Goncalves playing with her dog. After hearing voices that sounded like someone crying, she opened her bedroom door, looked out, and got a glimpse of a figure in black clothing leaving the house. Police later found the 4 victims in their bedrooms on the house 2nd and 3rd floor, each with multiple wounds. Whether the victims had any connection to Kohberger before the killings is still unclear. Before his arrest, the Pennsylvania native was enrolled in a criminal justice doctoral program at Washington State University, which sits across the border about 7 miles from the University of Idaho. He had just completed his first semester after finishing a master's degree in criminal justice at DeSales University in Center Valley, PA, in June. So the thing is yeah, there was some pretty odd things happening around June as well, if we remember. I'm looking. Jeepers creepers, where'd you get those peepers? He always looks, I know, right? Even it came from one of these, probably, I don't know, probably News Nation when they were on one of their rambles, but I think it was said, let me see. Where was I and what I said? Don't you love how I just every once in a while it just leaves? Wonder what that twisted mind thinks about his attorney. I'd love to know how they get along because he's so arrogant and he's got two women telling him literally what to do and not to do. Jeepers, peepers, where'd you get those? Oh, jeepers, creepers, where'd you get those peepers? Yep, the number one reason I don't drive. Oh my. Probably creeping about the woods in the back of his house. Oh, right? Isn't that creepy? Yeah, that's a creepy thought. Okay, I don't want to say for sure that there wasn't critters left in the back garden, but I seem to have heard something along those lines as well. Okay. Let's take a boo. So a high school classmate remembered Kohberger is shy, socially awkward, struggling with depression. In years-old social media posts that were uncovered by the New York Times, don't forget to look at the New York Times, the Washington Post. He said he watched his own life as if it were a video game and wrote that he could do whatever I want with little remorse. Now that's scary shit right there. That's scary shit right there. Unreal. That's never a good sign. A person needs remorse. The little remorse, no good. That makes them capable of anything. Literally anything. A lawyer representing Kohberger said shortly after his arrest that he expects to be exonerated. Yes. So I don't know. I'd love to know what they have that they think he could be exonerated. What the actual hell? His family expressed support for him and condolences for the victims in a statement released through an attorney in January. Well, now his sister has come out saying, one of his sisters, that even when he was there at Christmas, she thought, he may have something to do with this because he was wearing plastic gloves around the house, separating garbage. He lived super close to the place, and she just thought he was capable. So this is a sister. First and foremost, we care deeply for the 4 families who have lost their precious children, said Michael and Marianne Kohberger and sister Amanda. There are no words that can adequately express the sadness we feel, and we pray each day for them. We will continue to let the legal process unfold. As a family, we will love and support our son and brother. The family of at least one victim plans to attend Monday's arraignment. Steve Goncalves, the father of Kaylee. We're going to be there at every moment, analyze every piece of data, going through everything, make sure that it's the right person, and we can hold him accountable, he said. He added there should be some accountability when you take people that are special. Yeah. And you know what? I fully believe he will be at every single event, whether it's a trial, whether it's a motion. If he's not going to miss anything. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I agree, Maxie. I would love to know if this is continuing. I mean, it seems extremely strange. And I know we've talked about this, Maxie. How do they do that? How do they decide it's not related? We've seen that happen before. Remember Debbie Collier? She unalived herself. They come up with anything. Do you know what? Absolutely. Too coincidental. And I'd be curious. I need to be looking into this stuff since this is really it's going to start getting busy now. I need to find out through ancestry. I want to find out what the parents have been up to, what his aunt and uncles have been up to, his grandparents, I want to know where this came from, you know, because I mean, the parents might seem a little odd, a little like off-putting, but I don't think that enough to make your child do this. Just a little off-putting. And I feel horrible for them and their kids. Mm-mm. No way, James. I agree. What the hell was that case about? Like, what the hell? That is definitely not in my mind the way a woman would choose to go. Nah. Maybe just a bad apple. Yeah, he could be just a bad apple. I mean, the facts that his sisters are like questioning his guilt, that's big to me. While we're talking, I'm just going to see if there's been an update. Nope, still 3 hours ago. And I'm pretty sure, oh, you know what I'll look for too? I do believe. I'm just checking.
No. Lizzie, no.
What you got, Lizzie?
No. Drop it.
Lizzie, come here. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. It's very nice. Sit down. You sit down. It's a good girl. Sit down.
Better get a rear treat though.
Yep. Lizzie, good girl. That was a good girl bringing it to mom. She came in with hubby's shoes. Bring them to mom. I'll get a cookie. Oh, my word. Come on. Still 30 minutes. Bryan Kohberger trial date is set for October 2nd at 8:30. Did you get that? So not guilty, obviously, right? October 2nd at 8:30. There we go. Yeah, I didn't think there was, I really didn't think he was going to do anything but plead innocent the way he's been going. So let's see. I'm just going to see if anybody's out there giving us more information right now. Okay. Bryan Kohberger left, who is accused of unaliving 4 university students on November 22nd. Looks forward to attorney public defender and Taylor. Yada. This isn't the information I want. We're just looking at them. Okay.
Yeah. Oh.
I'm looking, guys. Bryan Kohberger stone-faced in court as not guilty. Let's see, let's hook on. Not guilty, guys. Yeah. Come on, come on, come on. Not guilty. I mean, did we expect any different? This is old.
If you waive your right to a speedy, Ms. Taylor, about your decision to waive, I will ask at this time that hearing can be held outside the 14-day period.
Yes.
And Ms. Taylor, do you
The accused man of attacking 4 University of Idaho students as they slept met with glares of victims' emotional families as a not guilty plea was entered on his behalf Monday. Bryan Kohberger wore an orange jail suit, jumpsuit, and what appeared to be a vest as he entered Latah County courtroom in Moscow, Idaho, full of the students' grieving loved ones. Just days after the grand jury returned a count of 5 indictments, according to reports from inside the courtroom. Kohberger briefly glanced at a packed gallery as arraignment got underway. Court TV reported this. He spoke spoke only briefly during the long-awaited hearing. Responded yes or yes I do when prompted by the judge. When asked how he pleaded to the crimes, Kohberger told the court her client was standing silent and not guilty plea was in turn entered on his behalf. Judge John Judge told Kohberger he faced maximum penalty of life or death penalty. Yep. Fry his ass. 28-year-old former criminology student was indicted on charges 4 counts of unaliving the victims. And we're not too sure what's going on with these 2 gals, are we? House of Horrors. Yeah. There's that, right? Let's see what else I can find. Let's see what else we can find. Come on. La-di-da-da-da. Mother calls for death penalty in Idaho. Let's check this out.
November will be arraigned today. Bryan Kohberger faces 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of felony burglary. He was arrested at his parents' home in Pennsylvania 6 weeks after the alleged murders. CBS News correspondent Lilia Luciano joins us now with more on this case. Lilia, good morning.
Good morning, Vlad. Good morning, Anne-Marie. Well, the accused killer, Bryan Kohberger, is expected to walk into this courtroom where we saw him last. This time, he's expected to plead not guilty. Also in the courtroom, besides a lot of media who are already lining up.
Okay, what was that? Let's see what else we got. Let's check out Bryan. So again, October 2nd, 8:30 a.m. So that's it so far. Let's see. I'm quite surprised. Like, there's really not a lot. So it says, Bryan Kohberger stands silent as judge asks for a plea. Bryan Kohberger, there we go, stood silent. I'm going to put this up a bit, guys. So really no surprise, right? And come on. Come on, let me go. See what this is. Okay. He stood silent, leading the judge to enter a not guilty plea on his behalf at his arraignment on Monday in response to being charged with the 4 counts of unaliving and 1 count of felony burglary and related to the brutal murders of 4 University of Idaho students last November. So this is him, like one of his first, right? His first appearances. So we were just looking at the facts, and it was saying that if he did not plead guilty, then the judge sets it for him. So it says here that Kohberger did not answer when Judge John Judge asked him how he pled Monday morning, meaning he chose to stand silent, in which case the judge enters not guilty pleas on the defendant's half. So why would he not answer, you guys? What would make him take that route? Yeah, I love it. I love it. That's not too far away. We got this. Let's see here. Do you remember those blogs we were reading where he talked about waking up to screams? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I do. Exactly. Exactly. Oh, yeah, they all, his family is questioning them. So is his family, of course, the law. Everyone's looking at him at this point. Yes, they do, James, absolutely have that DP. Okay. Looking. I had faith in Bryan here. He's not giving us a lot, is he? No, he hasn't been on since he told us the date. Okay, so where were we here? Judge set trial to begin. Judge set trial to begin October 2nd at 8:30 a.m. Okay, let's get this done. Kohberger did not answer, meaning he chose to stand silent. Judge set the trial to begin October 2nd at 8:30 a.m. after Kohberger's attorney asked for it to be set in October, saying she thinks it will be a 4 to 6 week trial. Kohberger was indicted by an Idaho grand jury on the charges last week, meaning a jury determined there was enough evidence to move forward in charging him with the unalivings. And that basically, like they're saying, paved the way to today's hearing. He was arrested in December after police were able to link him to a case with DNA collected from his parents and to the DNA recovered on a tan leather sheath. So again, I'm really wondering if he was on this 21andMe or whatever they said he was on, why was his DNA not looked at that point? So they're saying that at the parents' place, this is where they were able to get the father's DNA and make the link back to Bryan. And in addition, the DNA evidence officials have alleged that Kohberger's car was seen driving by the victim's house multiple times. See, now we know that someone has seen them, which is good because a lot of people were questioning he could be in a lot of different places with those pings. But if people are also seeing that vehicle, that's telling you a lot. And it did show, like they're saying, that the cell phone was driving to Moscow. So what happens, they're saying, I read somewhere that, let me see here. Yeah, I read somewhere that when he was going by all those 12 times, he knew he was going to do nothing wrong, that it was safe and it didn't matter. But ultimately, it did matter that he had his phone going because it was able to show what he was up to accurately. So we do know that this case, these kids were unalive on November 13th, 2022. The case did draw national attendance or attention, and Moscow community and law enforcement struggled with the investigation. They really did, but they did end up getting some help. So if found guilty, he could face the death penalty. In Idaho, the jury decides whether someone receives. Oh, you see, that's interesting to know because that's not the way it has been in a lot of the previous ones. Jury determines whether someone received the DP. And it does have to be unanimous. It is a penalty and is an option for first degree if at least one other qualification is met, including another unaliving that was committed at the same time and was especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel, nasty, exceptional depravity, and defendant exhibited utter disregard for human life. This looks interesting too, doesn't it? I get free for free. Might have to just get them.
Idaho murders suspect Bryan Kohberger indicted, paving way for trial. By Molly Bohannon. Top line. Bryan Kohberger, the suspect in the murder of 4 University of Idaho students last November, was indicted by an Idaho grand jury on murder charges Wednesday, leading to the cancellation of a preliminary hearing and paving the way for his arraignment in highly anticipated trial. Key facts. He is expected to appear in a Moscow, Idaho, courtroom on Monday for his arraignment and to enter his plea. Kohberger was arrested in December and charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and burglary and for allegedly breaking into a Moscow home and killing the students. Prosecutors were not expected to take the case before a grand jury, NBC News reported, but the panel's indictment allows them to forego a preliminary hearing that was scheduled for late June that would have involved presenting evidence and allowing cross-examination of the state's witnesses to determine if there was enough evidence for indictment. Under Idaho law, the prosecution must prove there is enough evidence either through a grand jury or a preliminary hearing. Key background: 4 University of Idaho students, Ethan Chapin, Kaylee Goncalves, Xana Kernodle and Madison Mogan, were stabbed to death in an off-campus home in the small college town of Moscow on November 13, 2022. Kohberger, a PhD student in the University of Washington's Criminal Justice Program, was arrested on December 30 for the murders and later extradited back to Idaho from his parents' home in Pennsylvania. Police were able to link Kohberger to the case after DNA collected from his parents' home matched DNA uncovered on a tan leather knife sheath found at the scene of the crime. The case drew national attention as law enforcement didn't announce leads, suspects, or a profile of the presumed killer for weeks, and they contradicted their own statements regarding whether the attack was targeted. The brutal murder shocked the Moscow community, leading the university to let students finish the fall semester online.
Yeah, there was a lot of changes made when this happened, and necessary, right? Okay, what did I just get here? I was going to take a look at this real fast. There we are. Sorry, guys. Bryan Kohberger, thank you very much. Mexi. Bryan Kohberger live. Oh, and Jazzy says hi. So barking, honking horns.
It's in one of the most talked about murder cases in recent history, is set to appear in court again tomorrow. Bryan Kohberger set to be arraigned just days after a grand jury indicted him in the November murders of 4 University of Idaho college students. You may remember this case. It was horrific. Arrest documents found that his phone was pinged several times near this home in the months leading up to the gruesome deaths. Kohberger is accused of killing the undergraduates in their sleep, including one young woman with ties to Avondale.
Here we go again. Let's take a look. Okay, we'll do this again, my friends. Mexi, you so rock. I appreciate you. It's, you know what I'm like when I've got like a fibro day? Well, here I sit. Okay, that's not what I wanted. Idaho murder suspect Bryan Kohberger refused to enter a plea at his arraignment on 4 counts of first-degree and burglary. The 28-year-old criminology PhD student's arraignment was scheduled for 9 a.m. PT in Lada County Courthouse in Moscow, Idaho. He was expected to enter a plea on the charges, but instead his attorney and Taylor said he was standing silent on the charges, leaving the judge to enter not guilty pleas on his behalf. So I'm wondering what the benefit is to not using, like, for not saying not guilty and letting the lawyer say he's not going to talk. What is the benefit? There's got to be a benefit of some type. So he was expected to plea. And like I said, he stood silent with his judge. He is accused of the attacks in the 1122 King Road deaths. 6 weeks after that happened, he was at his parents' home in Pennsylvania. There, they say investigators found DNA. Oh, this was at the crime scene. Knife sheath at the crime scene, white Hyundai matching his. Also captured on surveillance photos driving away from the area at the time of these deaths. So the key points right now are Bryan Kohberger is arraigned on these charges. He refused to enter a plea, so the judge did it. The trial date is now set for October 2nd. He is accused in all 4 deaths. And Bryan Kohberger's sister did fear that he was responsible for this before he was arrested. A suspect allegedly broke into another student's home and spied on the woman. These are things that they are saying he has done. So I am very, very interested in looking to see what else is out there. So it looks like they're not going to put anything else out. So what I'm going to do is jump off and I'm going to poke around a little bit and see what else there is out there. So I might do another live later in the day. So thanks, friends. I appreciate you being here with me. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.